procurement is, was, always will be about savings. And I get challenged on that, and I'm sticking by it. I think it as relevant today as it ever was, absolutely due to worldwide events. Other things are very prominent. Certainty of supply, compliant spend, understanding the geographic scope of your supplies, the risk inherent in your contracts. Very relevant and pertinent. But to me, it is the outcome, which gets to, if we want to get really far out there, pricing models for procurement platforms are historically, you pay for a module that comes with a certain number of licenses, or it's purely licensed or seat-based. Well, I think we're going to be slowly evolving to this outcome-based model.
Thank you so much for joining another edition of the Never-Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Patrick Reymann. Patrick is a longtime industry analyst, an expert analyst at IDC, and he's been figuring out who the winners and the not so much are in the procurement software space for a long time. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Sean. Thank you so much for having me. I kind of feel like I've made it. I've seen this platform. You do a great job of advertising it across LinkedIn and YouTube, and I've seen it for a long time. And it's like, I'll date myself. I finally made it to Tonight Show, Johnny Carson. I'm here with Sean, so I think I've made it.
That's amazing.
I think we met whenever a year ago, but I followed you prior to that, and we had a sideway, a hallway, not a hallway, but a demo floor introduction, and obviously we've spoken many times since then. So I always appreciate talking shop with you. You are one of the experts in this space, and I feel so fortunate because I always get to talk to people who are orders of magnitude more intelligent than I am, and I learn so much. And it's just, I feel very lucky. So I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, that's amazing, Patrick. Thank you. What I would hope is that as we get a chance to talk, I would love to create the opportunity for folks to hear from you things that you're seeing as those trends in the market, trends in the solutions that are out there. And I was thinking about how there's this agentic word. Of course, everyone's talking about it. But what do you see in maybe what good looks like in that probabilistic generative AI agentic side of things that needs to mix with the enterprise grade, at least 1 to 2 sigma reliability that enterprises need? They need the predictable, the reliable, they need it to just work.
It's staggering, the for lack of a better word, the growth of agents. Staggering. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'll take a slight detour here, but I think it's worthwhile. Everything changed in November of 2022. Everything changed because that's when OpenAI released ChatGPT. And that is this generation's iPhone moment. So the world changed. Yep. And then, quickly on the heels of that, we have all these other generative chatbots quickly follow. I could rattle them off, but we all know the names. And so that went through 2023, and then 24, you start hearing rumblings about agents, and it builds and builds and builds and builds. And then we hit 25, and it just has exploded. Every conversation I have with both providers and buyers begins and ends with some discussion of agents or agentic platforms. Having said that, so many are using the idea incorrectly and conflating virtual assistants with agents.
Yep.
It's rampant. And it's really hard. You put yourself in the perspective of a user or prospective user of these tools, and they're all just getting used to the idea of Gen AI. The agentic evolution is a step change forward from that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a step change. And
ChatGPT
so,
was amazing, but now an agent that can solve a problem on its own.
yes, so at the highest level, it's data, it's content retrieval, prompt generated content retrieval, content summarization. Those are generative chatbots. But then agents go the step further in terms of they learn along the way. You can assign an agent attributes and a desired outcome, and the agent will then work to drive towards those outcomes. So that's, I mean, I'm grossly oversimplifying it, but at the highest level, that would be the difference. So to get back to your question, to me, it comes back to those standard old boring procurement KPIs that we all know that to me can illustrate the true utility of an agentic approach. And you know, the KPIs like, do you know your average, how long does it take you to raise a PO? How many FTEs are in your procurement organization per PO produced? Or pick a per invoice process, per whatever. And then the holy grail KPI in the procurement world is savings. Um, I always like to joke, not really joke, but you know, I have my first theorem of procurement is, was, always will be about savings. And I get challenged on that, and I'm sticking by it. I think it is as relevant today as it ever was. Absolutely, due to worldwide events, other things are very prominent. Certainty of supply, compliant spend, um, understanding the geographic scope of your supplies, the risk inherent in your contracts. Very relevant and pertinent. But to me, it is the outcome, which gets to, you know, if we want to get really far out there, pricing models for procurement platforms are historically you pay for a module that comes with a certain number of licenses, or it's purely licensed or seat based. Well, I think we're going to be slowly evolving to this outcome based model
Yep.
to where, at least in the interim, maybe we'll see a more consumption based model because providing generative AI and agentic capabilities costs money. You know, that's not free. And so providers have to recover that cost. So we are seeing an uptick in more consumption based models, kind of a hybrid, leverage also while still utilizing some measure of license or seat based. But I do think we're moving to an outcome based model. So I've gotten way off your original question, I know, but
This is about the opportunity for folks to hear from you and what you're seeing. I think that's my favorite part about it. When you see those trends, right? Because I think this is a great segue into some of the other trends in the procurement software market that you get feedback from customers and others in the area. What are you finding the biggest things changing? And I think the pricing model and the agentic ingredient is a really important component. What would you add to that?
I would add to that. This may seem like I'm dodging the question, but I'm truly not. Usability, the user experience, and adoption remain so important. And I would say in the procurement app space, I mean, just in the past 3 to 4 years, those things have all improved dramatically. So kudos to providers for giving that the attention that it needs. The other being, spend management in concept is pretty simple. It's managing your spend. In
Yeah.
practice, it's very difficult, very difficult, and that's because for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons is it all gets back to entities and organizations necessarily have a large number of, let's just say, procurement apps that they're using. It's almost unheard of that an entity or organization has a single platform across their entire enterprise. So, as a result, and because the full suite providers, quite frankly, took their eye off the ball for a little bit, took their eye off the usability, the user experience, we've seen this dramatic rise in organizations that start with the idea, or excuse me, applications that start with the idea of let's make this insanely easy for the end user, and not the end user being a procurement practitioner, but it's the
Yeah.
end user in the warehouse or on
Yeah.
the shop floor, right? So let's this idea of the democratization of procurement. So the biggest trend I think is probably the democratization of procurement, the user experience, and trying like heck to provide that visibility across the enterprise, um, which then leads to all sorts of good things: increased spend under management, reduced tail spend. Obviously, you increase spend under management, you're necessarily going to be more compliant. You're necessarily going to have more savings opportunities. All those good things that happen as a result of usability and adoption.
I think the refrain that we sometimes hear of procurement being brought in too late or procurement taking too long or so many of those
Mm.
things can be addressed by making it super easy to put in that intake request and then see where it is as it's moving along through its journey to become ultimately the thing that you needed in the first place. When there's
Yeah.
sourcing events and then contracting and all of that, that just starts to feel like a black box to so many people. And then for the people within procurement, unless they've been there a while, it's very difficult for them to follow all of those things. I think this really it epitomizes that ability to move quickly and systematize as opposed to having an individual know where it all is and know where all the stuff is and be responsible for all of that. That
Mm-hmm.
that contrast, I think, is one of the indicators between the leading and the lagging organizations out there.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
the leading ones are systematizing, they're automating, and the lagging ones are, well, you call Ted because Ted knows how to help you. But
Yeah.
Ted's busy, so it might take a little while. And that contrast is absolutely amazing in the speed, the velocity, the impact to the business, and you said it, the savings. Sometimes there's the upside of the procurement supply chain side actually bringing in enough of the materials so you have enough things, enough raw material to go make stuff so you can sell it. I know that's also one of those considerations these days because buying stuff's not easy. I mean, it's easy to go to the mall, but
Yeah.
in the enterprise context, it's just not that simple. And I think
Right.
this is one of those beautiful opportunities to highlight that.
You made me think of something. You talked about leading and lagging organizations, and that's a very good point. I'll share with you. I hear this once a week, no exaggeration, because when I'm talking to users, there's a few things I will always ask them. Do you know about the latest and greatest functionality of the platform that you're using or what's out there? Do you think it has value to you? Are you interested in it? And the answer to those questions is almost always yes. And then the next question is, are you using this? Are you using it? And the answer is almost always no. And so I say, why? And the answer is always some form of, we're really interested in this. We think there's value there. But, as an organization, we're just not mature enough yet to go there. We're still trying to get our handle on processing our invoices or whatever the case may be. I hear that repeatedly. And what I want to say, but don't, is you need to get mature. This isn't, and I'm sensitive to the user. The user says, "Look, I'm going to use the platform that's available to me, and if it's in there, great. But I can't drive this from where I sit." And I don't agree with that. I think the user can drive that. So one thing I always say is, first thing you should do is talk to your existing provider or providers, plural, just to understand what's available to you. But beyond that, go out on your own and just explore. Play around with any of the dozens of generative chatbots available to you. You might be surprised. Okay, you're a category manager. See what Perplexity tells you about your use case. You have a challenge in front of you to manage a category. See what it drives, and then pick and choose from the return. So the lack of maturity is it's kind of a mindset.
Yep.
But I think that needs to
change. And people get
change.
stuck in that too.
Yes, I agree. And so, but, as we see so many phenomenal examples out there, and I'll give a shameless plug for Rio here. I mean, play around. Just check it. Go to the website and see what maybe there's something there that interests you. What's happening with an agentic approach today? What are people doing today? Just to spur that thought process, to give you a sense of where you can go. So anyway, another tangent, but I thought I'd throw that in there.
What I love about that, Patrick, is there's that openness and that directness that comes from, hey, I know that you feel like you're not mature enough, so you just need to deal with like basics like invoicing. Cool. I mean, speaking of shameless plug, Rio's pretty darn good at that. But then once you're in, there's often other things that you can do that don't wait, move, go do something about it. Even if the thing that you do is to go and do some of that evaluation and put together a business case that you can take forward, because sometimes funding is the barrier. But if savings is the return on investment and you can achieve that in less than 12 months, which many times you can, then wow, what are we waiting for? And I think that what are we waiting for is often a factor of, our own teams that are in their own way in thinking, I can't change it, or not empowered, or don't have budget, or it's too hard, or it's too complicated. Well, that's part of the gig, right? That's part of the job, is to go keep climbing, go make it better. And I love that you're, finding that polite way of encouraging them to go take a look at what they could do, because they can do things. And I think every company right now, with agentic this and AI that, every company needs those leaders that are going to stand up, put their hand up and say, I got this. I don't know what all the answers are yet, but I'm going to go figure that out. I'm going to go make it happen. And those are the people that their jobs are safe from AI.
we have there's a quote, it's over a year old. The IDC does this CEO interview series, and it's a quote that's been spread around widely within IDC, and I just love it, because it was a agriculture sector CEO, and the quote was, AI is not going to take your job, but someone who can apply AI better than you will. And I just thought
Yeah,
that's it. That's spot on.
it's 100%. And it's not just the whether or not you know how to use Perplexity to help you in your own job. It's about the leverage that these leaders are creating within their organizations to take advantage of that technology at scale. And, you know, getting everybody a pro subscription for Perplexity is that's one thing. But now imagine that you were able to tackle a bunch of the work from those people,
Right.
and all of a sudden you can create the conditions where you can go from 8 accounts payable teams down to one, or you can create the conditions where, you know, it takes half the people it used to go and do
Yes,
this important thing, which probably means there's a bunch of other important things you haven't gotten to yet that they can go get to, hopefully.
absolutely.
But it's going to
Yeah.
be the ones that make the difference, and the leaders that move ahead are the ones that are embracing this and making a difference. I'm also curious about, maybe there's a few misconceptions that you could leave us with around procurement software agentic capability. What are some of the common misconceptions that you run into? Because I think there's some funny ideas out there.
Yeah, I already touched upon the one with just the misuse of the term and concept of agents. That's
Yeah.
the biggest one. The other one is going to be I can't just turn this over to a machine, for lack of a better word. I'm giving up everything and turning it over to a platform to execute these things. And we still need the human touch, right? And there's this thought that a sourcing event, then all those supplier negotiations, which as a former practitioner, to me, that was one of the more fun parts of my jobs. I really enjoyed the negotiation. They say, I don't want to give that up. I mean, that's cool. That's fun. But you are not necessarily giving that up because, as I've seen it, there absolutely still is that conduit for the human touch points along the way, and it can be set up to infuse that again the human touch. There are checkpoints. Okay, are things proceeding according to your wishes?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Uh, I don't really like this outcome. Let's re-engage with these suppliers or whatever the case may be. But it's the thought that you're just giving everything up to agents that could return something that maybe you're not, didn't really want. And so th- that's another value that we see is that, you tell the agents, okay, these are the attributes that are important to me. These are my minimum specs, if you will, or outcomes. I have to have, I can only source from these geographies, or I have to get X% savings, or these sustainability metrics are really important to me. So I have to have these. In some ways, it kind of gets to um, skillfully, I was going to say prompt engineering, but that's not the right way to phrase it. But, designing the execution towards an outcome such that it aligns to your objectives. So so yes, it's that thought that I'm giving up all control to agents, and then what do you need me for, right? And I do think that's a misconception.
Yeah. And I think because that idea that the agent would start as fundamentally needing a lot of feedback. And I think that's one of those other ideas is that the agent somehow just automagically knows. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they were saying, "Wait, so you mean, Rio would need us to help understand our data? Why doesn't Rio just understand our data?" And I had to stop him. It was in a small room at this event, and this guy was insisting that that whatever tool or agent or orchestration platform or something needed to know his own data better than he did. I really pushed back. Hopefully, I know it was polite, but I was quite direct about it. I said that if any vendor out there ever tells you that you don't need to understand your own data or your own process, I don't know what they're selling, but I don't want any, because
Yeah.
you are still
Yeah.
responsible for your own data and you are still responsible for your own process. And that agent, that intake orchestration platform, that software, that procurement solution, whatever it is, it can help you, but you cannot abdicate to it. And I think that's one of those other kind of misperceptions, is there's this idea that, I mean, that you could just give it to the agent just automatically knows how to read your mind and figure everything out. I mean, don't get me wrong, the agent can read your data and summarize it for you faster than you can, 100%. But does it understand your business and your data and your process? Not until you teach it how. And even then, you need that human in the loop in many cases to go in and help make sure that it's looking at it the right way and not misinterpreting something. So I've suggested as an example that trying to do a category strategy is something that is still very much human centric, human in the loop, right? I've joked that, I mean, at least as we are today, don't give Rio your category strategy to do for you, but execute it. Heck yeah. Just don't
Well,
expect the probabilistic to purely go and execute on a category strategy today that today takes some of your best and brightest with deep context and knowledge and understanding of all of your supply chain, all of your suppliers, and what really matters to different parts of the business that aren't all in your ERP system. And they might not all be in your BI data lake. So those are the
right.
things that I think I would add in terms of the misconceptions, because when we're helping folks on this journey together, we get to go and invite them to consider some of these things that they might maybe have been told by a vendor that, hey, their solution gets all of their data, they don't have to worry about it. And oh my god, I don't know who's telling people that. I have an idea, but I
Yeah.
mean, no thanks. That's like going and hiring one of the big
Yeah.
global systems integrators and saying, that's okay, just upgrade my ERP system. I know you got it. Let me know when you're done. That's called a walking PO, and
Yeah.
it's the opposite of savings. I love that we get to
Yeah.
call these things out. What else would you want to leave leaders with as something to consider to help them think about procurement software in these agentic days?
Yeah, I'll throw out a stat from it's a little bit dated. Again, a quick segue before I get to your question is, I talked about November of 2022 as being that changed everything. And, we have survey data from just 2 years later, November of 2024. And it basically asked, what's your approach to Gen AI? How are you applying it? Are you investing in it? And less than 9% said they were doing nothing with Gen AI. This is about 1,000 C-level executives across the globe say, and not this isn't specific to procurement, but it's across the board. What is your approach? What are your thoughts on Gen AI? Less than 9% in 2 years. That level of adoption is staggering. So to bring this back to procurement, I think the takeaway is, and I'll tie to something I said earlier, is kick the tires, you know, and don't be afraid. As a procurement leader for an organization, can you answer the basic questions that back in my consulting days I would always ask when I walked in the door? how easily is for you to answer what was your spend last year? How well are you adhering to the payment terms that are in your contracts? How much of your spend is under management? If those answers take effort for you to answer, then you really need to think about how you can leverage higher level functionality, AI, to get you to that point. To move you up the maturity model continuum from an immature organization to a mature organization. And it's coming. Okay. If you don't do that, you're going to be left behind. We have models we have one that's for enterprise SaaS solutions. This model continuum of over the next 10 years, the evolution of agents in enterprise SaaS. And we'll be coming out with one specific to procurement here soon. But there's no going back. It's coming, and it's coming a lot faster than people expect. Now, who's going to be the winners? It's still undetermined. The providers that you all know today, I just finished the spring conference circuit, right? Everybody front and center, here's what we're doing to drive an agentic approach to our solution. So that battle's going to play out, right? But it's coming, and minimally understand what's possible. Kick the tires, because it's very, very soon. A number of years where it's not going to be the how can I help you today. It's going to be that agentic front end to drive outcomes. So I hope that answer wasn't too generic and squishy.
Oh, I think you hit the key point there, right? The existing suite providers are all working on it to catch up. And we all know it's important. And it's here, right? It's already here. And the companies that are already using it are winning because they're going from big teams to small, focused ninja teams that have those digital employees working hard to pick up the rest of it. They're dealing with the exceptions. They're dealing with the strategic stuff. And I think that's that transition that we're getting to. Any last thoughts you want to leave folks with as we land the plane here today, Patrick?
This is what I tell providers, okay? Because everybody wants to lead their pitch with agents. And our agents do this and that. And I think that's a mistake. I think that's a mistake because the fundamentals don't change. And the fundamentals are ROI, business value, and savings, right? So if you can couch your solution in those terms, you're going to stand out. And buyers are going to need a lot of help internalizing those things and understanding those things. Because if you think in the perspective of the buyer, 2 years ago, they just convinced the CFO to spend all this money on this platform. And now I'm going back to the CFO to say, I need this money because I need these agents. And that's not a dead end. I mean, that can be a very compelling, worthwhile conversation, probably a very necessary conversation. But my point is that it all gets back to the fundamentals that I mentioned before. You can see buyers' eyes glazing over when everybody starts throwing Gen AI and agents at them. And it's real easy to lose them. And so if we can put it in those terms of those basic procurement fundamentals, I think everyone will be well served.
I love that. I think it's the ability to make it really matter.
Yeah,
Patrick, grateful for your
agreed.
time today. Thank you so much for joining us. And to everybody watching, this has been another edition of The Never Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Thanks so much, everyone. See you next week.